Hey guys, so we're going to be starting our unit on data, and we're going to be looking at graphs, we're going to be looking at circle graphs, we're going to be looking at bar graphs and dot plots and histograms and box and whiskers. So we're going to start off small though. So before we begin, we need to remember, how do we solve for a percent? Ms. Hitchcock's class knows 95 times when you see a percent sign, you should think part over whole equals percent over 100, because you're going to be able to use this formula 95% of the time. Now, not all the time, but a majority of the time. Alright, so dot plots. This is what a dot plot looks like. Alright, it has a bunch of dots. Obviously, it's a dot plot with a bunch of dots. I can tell a lot from this graph. For instance, how many people were surveyed? All that means is you have to count the dots. So let's talk. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I know y'all can count, so why don't you count the rest and see if we get the same answer. I got 25. Now, if I'm wrong, tell your math teacher and tell him to come yell at me because I can't count. Alright, so the next one says, what percent of the class has a household of 3 or fewer people? So I like to highlight, so I'm going to highlight the households, and this is number of people in households. Alright, the households with 3 or fewer. So that means I have 3, and then fewer means I'm going to get smaller, so I'm going to highlight these two. Alright, well, it also says percent. When you see percent, you should think P over W is equal to percent over 100. It's asking for the percent. What percent? It doesn't know the percent, so we're going to be solving for our percent. So I'm going to put X over the percent. 100 is my gimme. I say 100 is my gimme because no matter what, your 100's always going to go under your percent, no matter how many information they give you. Alright, my whole. What was the whole? How many people were entirely surveyed? Or how many people got surveyed in all? 25. And how many people did we see had 3 or fewer? We highlighted them, so we needed to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 is my part. 25 is my whole, 7 is my part. Now you have 2 ways to solve this. You have the way that always works 100% of the time, cross multiply, set up an equation, and solve for your variable x. So it would be something like 700, because 100 times 7 is 700, is equal to 25x. And divide by your coefficient to isolate your variable. Or I see a scale factor of 4. So what I do to the bottom, I can do to the top. And this is easier because 7 times 4 is 28. So 28%. This means that 28% of those students surveyed, or people surveyed, had 3 or fewer people in their house. Alright. Bar graphs is what's next. A bar graph looks like this. Now, there's space in between. That's really important to know because we're going to be talking about another graph later that doesn't have space in between, and it's called something different. But for right now, we're looking at a bar graph, and it says 3 boys and 3 girls ran for class president. If you want to pause it and write the B's and the G's next to their names, I labeled the boys and the girls for you. It says, which is greater? The percent of total votes for boys that Derek received, or the percent of total votes for girls that Dora received? So I'm looking specifically at Derek, and I'm looking at Dora. So I'm going to put Derek over here. I'm going to put Dora over here. Alright, so let's talk Derek first. Percent of total votes for Derek. Well, I need to know total votes of boys, though. I need to know how many total votes we got for the boys. So Andrew got 75 votes. Derek got 135. And Miguel got 90. And all I did to read this was go up to the bar and come over here to the y-axis and see that the bar only went up to 75, only went up to 135, and went up to 90. So the total votes for boys are these 3 added together. Why don't you add those 3 together and we'll see if we get the same answer. Alright, I got 300. I got the boys, there were 300 votes from boys. So Since we're looking for a percent, we see percent, so we're going to do part over whole is equal to percent over 100. I know my total votes for boys is 300. And I know 100 is my gimme. So if this means if Derek got 100% of the votes, he would have got 300 votes. But we know Derek didn't get 300 votes. He got 135 votes. So that means that 135 is our part. And I want to know what percent of 135, or what percent is 135 of 300. So again, you can cross multiply and then divide by your coefficient. Why don't you pause after you cross multiply? 300 times x is 300x is equal to 135 times 100. If you can do mental math in your head real fast, think about it. You have 2 zeros, cover them up. 1 times 135 is 135, and add your 2 zeros back. How do I solve for x now? Divide by your coefficient to isolate your variable x. X is equal to, I have 2 zeros on top, 2 zeros on bottom. They can be canceled out. So now all you have to do is 135 divided by 3. Pause the video, please, and solve it. If you would have solved it, you should have got x to be 45%. Are we done? No, because the question's asking you to compare Derek and Dora's. So I'm going to pause this video while you pause the video too, and I'm going to work it out, and then I want you to work it out too. Alrighty, so you can see that I've finished all my work here. Now, instead of you just copying down the answer, why don't you go ahead and copy down this work if your work doesn't look like this or you didn't know what to do. But then I want you to actually listen to what I'm about to say. So pause it if you're just going to copy. Alright, I needed to find the whole. How many girls voted? I needed to know what my whole was. So I added Becky, which 105, I added Dora, 150, and I added Trisha, which was 120. I added all those together, and I got 375. I put it on the bottom because that was my whole. I filled in my 100 gimme. I'm solving for a percent still, so that's why x is my variable in the percent spot. And then, why did I put 150 in my part? Well, because the question's asking what percent of the total votes for girls did Dora receive? Well, Dora received 150 votes, so that's why I put 150 there. I want to know what percent was 150. Alright, I cross multiplied, and I got 15,000 on this side, and I cross multiplied this way. 375 times x, you get 375x. How do I isolate my variable? I divide by my coefficient 375. So I divide both sides, because what you do to one side you have to do to the other. This cancels out, and I'm left with 15,000 divided by 375. If you divided it correctly, you should have got 40. Now the question's still not done. It says, who received the greater percent? Was it Derek or was it Dora? Well, what's greater, 45 or 40? Derek did receive the greater percentages of votes because 45 is bigger than 40. Alright? Now, if you're listening to this video and you're actually watching this video, what I want you to do is I want you to, in the comment section, all I want you to do is type the word purple. P-U-R-P-L-E. That's going to show me that you actually watched this video. But don't tell your friends because they're going to get in trouble if they don't watch it too. Alright, so circle graphs is next. We can see many ways a circle graph can look. Here are the two most common. What's the difference? What do you see in the difference between these two circle graphs? I see percentages here, and I see degrees here. So the difference is, one is in percents, the other is in what? Is in degrees. Now, do you remember how many degrees are in a circle? In case you forgot, there's 360 degrees in a circle. Just like a triangle has 180 degrees, a circle has 360. Alright, so we're going to look at the ticket types first. If there are 5,000 tickets available for a concert, the percent available tickets belonging to each ticket type is shown in the circle graph. Calculate the number of tickets available for each type of ticket. Alright, so ultimately we're going to look over here and we're going to say which seating has the most tickets. Could you tell that before we found the actual numbers? We're going to figure it out. So first it says floor. Floor says it's 16%. Alright, so I know, see a percent side, so I'm going to think P over W is equal to percent over 100. My 100 is my gimme. 16 is a percent. What's your total? What's your whole? How many tickets were sold in all? Overall. Good, 5,000. So 5,000 goes in your whole, and I want to know how many of those tickets were floor tickets. Alright, cross multiply, 100x is equal to 16 times 5,000. If you add it all up, sorry, I can't read my own work because I ran out of room. So that means you probably ran out of room, so you might need another piece of paper. Is equal to 80,000. Divide by your coefficient to isolate your variable. 2 zeros on bottom, so I can take away 2 zeros on top. So that means that 800 floor tickets were sold. Alright, I'm going to do one more. And then you're going to pause it and you're going to do the rest on your own, and we're going to compare answers. The lower level was 30%. That means that 30% is going to go over 100. I still know there's 5,000 tickets. I'm trying to figure out how many tickets were lower level tickets. That's why it's my part. Cross multiply. You should get 100x is equal to 150,000. Divide by your coefficient to isolate your variable. Divide by your coefficient on this side. X is equal to 1,500 tickets. Alright, so what I want you to do, I'm so sorry. I wasn't even showing you really the work. I think you saw a little bit of it. If you missed any, I'm really, really sorry. Y'all try upper level, platinum, and club though, and then we'll compare answers. Alright, so if you did all the work correctly, your answer should be the following. Upper level was 2,200, platinum was 100, and club was 400. Alright, if you didn't, I'll zoom in real fast so you can see the work. Here's upper level work, and here is platinum's work. And here's the club work. Pause it on whatever you need to check your work. Alright, the question says, which seating has the most tickets? Well, which number was the greatest? Was it 800? Was it 100, 1,500, 400, or 2,200? Yeah, upper level had the most. Could we have told that upper level was going to have the most before we found the numbers? Yes, because it has the greater section of the chart. Upper level had the greatest, so yes, you could. Alright, and the last one, and I know this was a longer video, so I apologize again, but how do we use the other graph? It only gives us degrees. Well, we don't know, we haven't been taught how to use degrees, but we know there's 360 degrees in a circle, so we'd have to change each degree into a percent. Well, how do we do that? Well, I need to figure out what percent 100 is of 360. Alright, so you go 100 over 360. It's a fraction. Do you know how to change a fraction to a decimal? Okay, yes. And then you know how to change a decimal to a percent, right? Yeah, so take off 0 here and a 0 here to make our numbers smaller. So we have 10 over 36. Simplify again, we can simplify by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 36 divided by 2 is 18. Now I have to figure out what is 5/18 as a decimal. How do I do that? Top dog in the house. And 18 can go into 50. How many times? 2. right? 36. You're left with 14. This can go in, I think, 7 times, right? 7 times 18 is 126. We're going to left with another 14, so it's going to keep on going, keep repeating. So I have this decimal of 277 thousandths. How do I change a decimal to a percent? You use DP. You go over twice, and I get about, we're going to round to the nearest whole. So this is 28%. Now that you have 28%, you would use the same process up here if you were given more information to solve for the actual number of phone calls, if you had how many phone calls were total, but we don't have how many total phone calls. Alright, so the first step was to put it in a fraction. So for email had 60 degrees, and we have a total of 360 degrees. We have 0 and a 0, take them off. So you have 6 over 36, divide by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 36 divided by 6 is 6. Try and figure out what 1/6 is as a decimal. Pause it. You should get 0.167 when you divide, or when you move your decimal, DP. I'm here at a decimal, I need to get to a percent. I have to go over 1, 2 times. So 1, 2 is going to be 16.7, which rounds up to 17%. Alright, you try the last two. Pause the video right now, please, and you try the last two on your own. Alright, so if I looked at other, I had 80 degrees, so I put it over 360, and I simplified it to 8 over 36. I divided it, numerator and denominator, by 2, 4 over 18, divided by 2 again, 2 over 9. The 9's trick, don't forget, if 9 is in your denominator, your numerator is just the decimal repeating. So if I have 2/9, it's going to be 0.222222. 1/9 is going to be 0.111111. Alright, so that was my 9's trick. I moved it over twice, and I got 22%. If not, you could have divided this out. You would have got the same thing. Texts, you had 120 over 360. Take off a 0. You have 12 over 36. Divide numerator and denominator by 12. You get 1/3. 1/3 is a benchmark fraction that you should have memorized to be 0.33333333. Move it over twice, and you get 33%. Alright, this was a lot of information. I'm sorry if it took you longer than you had hoped. Come with any questions. Write it right here at the bottom if you have any questions. Answer your Google Doc. Don't forget the tip I told you, and have a great day.